And I think, that's what we need societally, is to be able to remember what we are, to be able to go into, take these plants, whichever plants, and access infinity, remember what we are, and be able to do that regularly enough that it actually has an impact on our lives.
Do you want to sit in a small, dark room all by yourself? Or do you want to be able to explore what's possible with psychedelics? Now, I know that those two questions could make you or could make others absolutely cringe when I ask them, and that's perfectly fine. So whether you're totally into meditation, darkroom retreats, spirituality work, dare I say it with those air quotes going around, and even in psychedelics, then this is for you. And because if you're not into it, or if you're new into it, I think we're going to find some really common ground. It's why I sit down with Mariano in this episode to really peel back what is going on when it comes especially to why someone would want to sit in a small dark room and what darkness retreats are. And you'll find out in this episode as we really peel that back. And then also going into the world of psychedelics, and especially with Mariano's just first-hand experience. What has he been able to go through? What is he able to take back into the world that he lives in a day-to-day? And I share things that I've never shared publicly ever before when it comes to my own experiences with psychedelics and with meditation and darkness retreats as well. So I'd love to hear from you after this episode as into what you've been able to take away from this. And if you're joining us on the podcast, then please jump on over to the YouTube channel, the Christopher Dufey YouTube channel, and watch this conversation unfold on camera and be able to get access to all of the great episodes as well. And if you're going to share this out on social, because I would love for you to share this out on social as well, and also so I can get your feedback as to what you've been able to take away from this episode, please tag me in it so I can personally say thank you for joining us in this episode. So where I want to start this, Mariano, is it was a bit over 2 years ago. I had started doing a weekly float tank session. I was also about 2/3 of the time doing it where I'd make a mushroom tea and have about 1 to 2 grams of tea whilst doing the float tank as well. Okay. And was having really positive experiences from that. I was also studying and getting into Dzogchen Buddhism and really practicing and learning kind of like that lineage of Buddhism. And then that took me down the route of my teacher, my practitioner. He doesn't really go by that. He kind of said he was just my spiritual friend. But anyway, someone that was helping me learn and practice more of the Dzogchen got me to know about darkness retreats. So I started to practice getting ready for that. I did a 2-day darkness retreat and had a profound experience. And I was like, this is really incredible. And I thought it was kind of normal until I was speaking with other people, but I was really enjoying the darkness. I was really enjoying the isolation, and it gave me that space where I was able to work through my stuff, kind of like get into crevices and spaces that I couldn't in other areas as well. And I have 4 young daughters. At the moment, I have a 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 3-year-old, and 5-month-old, all daughters. So there can be a lot of noise at home as well. So I kind of like enjoy that space and isolation. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to being able to, I want to use, and this might be the wrong word, so I want you to help guide me along this way, successfully use darkness and psychedelics, and it doesn't have to be together, but how to use these kind of modalities and these tools. What comes up for you as to how to best use these tools at hand?
Well, first I'll say that it's just this. I'm just a guy that I just wanted to do this, so I'm not like some professional that could like tell people like this is how you do it.
And that's exactly why I want to have this conversation, because I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll just speak from just what I've done. I mean, for me, I was always fascinated by salvia divinorum. That's just like my plant. I've done lots of different substances and a lot of them, but I always call back to salvia, and salvia just required an environment to keep me safe, and it also required darkness to really immerse myself into the trance of where it takes me. Because if there's any external input, light, sound, it just kind of interrupts the trip. But if I have sensory deprivation, then it allows an easier transition into it, which can already be difficult enough at times. So to me, it's the purpose of sensory deprivation and darkness is generally when we do psychedelics, like we do it outside in nature, or we do it in our living room, or I don't know, with friends somewhere or whatever. But when in sensory deprivation, the only input is the body itself. So there's just breathing, heartbeat, feeling the body, and like your own mind, and there's nothing else. And so you don't have anything else to blame. When things, blame's not quite the word, but like you were in your darkness retreat, like you get to go into these cracks and crevices that you don't normally have access to, because sometimes it's just a subtle little input or a subtle little sensation or thought in the body that just opens up just a wormhole into a whole other reality. That's basically why I call like the chambers I make portals, because in combination with certain things, it literally, and it's not a metaphor, like especially using salvia, it literally opens a portal that it just, as the universe is tiny compared to what it opens up. It's like the universe just fits inside the reality that it opens up to me, and then I not only see it, but I actually become it and merge with it and traverse through it. I don't go through it. Awareness detaches from my body and merges with just that other reality. It's not even other, it's just this reality phase changes into some more truthful dimension, like more like waking up from a dream. It's like this is a dream, and I wake up into a few levels up, and it depends how far I go. Depends like by my system, by my mind, and just grace itself, how far up I just merge. So anyway, I'm just ranting right now.
No, this is great. I love the I find it extremely fascinating because so much of the time when having psychedelic experiences, especially, for me, it does become ineffable, and when I try to use words to explain it, I feel like I'm just bumbling along, and I'm like, oh, this isn't getting to the experience, the feeling that I had, and I want to be able to better communicate what that can feel like as well. When it comes to set and setting and being able to do this, and you can talk to a variety of different psychedelics use depending on the differences that you see fit with this, how do you see someone can use the chambers for its best use?
Well, I'll quickly describe what the chamber is. Basically, it's a chamber that's like a box that's about 4 feet high, 5 feet high, 4 feet wide, and 8 feet long. And you go inside, and it's just pitch black, it's silent, it's ventilated, so you're getting fresh air. You close the door, and you're just kind of sealed inside in the darkness. And then there's like a pad, so you can sit down or lay down, whatever position, and meditate, do a psychedelic, do a little mini darkness retreat or whatever. Just a place where you can just take away all external input and just be with the body and the mind. So that's what that is. For me, there's always this concept of normalizing psychedelics, like normalizing psychedelic use, personal psychedelic use, into my lifestyle. And so what I would always have is these excuses like, oh, I don't have, there's noises outside, or there's people around, or whatever. I have all these excuses for why right now is not a good time to do it. And so when I built this chamber, now I just have a space that whenever I need it, it could be, and there's many times, like over the past year especially, where I was doing it every day for months on end. And so I just had this space that I could just go in, and this is a space dedicated to it, and it's safe in here. And the only thing I have to worry about is, nothing really. It's like, well, just my own fears, my own pain, all those things I end up needing to face when I go in there. And I think for me, this is like my passion, and it was already hard enough to integrate it into my life being able to regularly access infinity, basically, access these states. And I think, that's what we need societally, is to be able to remember what we are, to be able to go into, take these plants, whichever plants, and access infinity, remember what we are, and be able to do that regularly enough that it actually has an impact on our lives. And then not only just in like a healing sense, like, oh, it's like therapy or medicine. I think that that's just like an initial phase because we've been so disconnected for so long. But to me, normalizing, human beings are designed to merge in and out of these realities. And it's where we come from. Like, this is just, I think what happens is we come into a human body and then we disconnected from the types of societies that we were before, where we were regularly doing this stuff. And so we come to this reality and then we just get kind of locked in to this sort of normal, alert, waking state. And we didn't remember that, oh, we can merge in and out of these things and then help bring ourselves into alignment with our purpose, our passion, our desire, just whatever it is that we're here for. And so, to normalize that. And I'm not saying everybody has to do it every day. I don't do it every day now, but I definitely do it multiple times a week at least. But being able to do that, I think a lot of people would definitely benefit a lot from it. And it's just awesome. It's like these realities are awesome. It basically pauses reality for a little bit, and you get to just enjoy a show that is, there's nothing on earth that could provide this sort of show. But like, granted, you have to like pay the toll, which is whatever your toll is. It could be your fear, it could be your pain, your insecurities, your whatever it is that we have to face.
Have you had fears specifically going into psychedelic use journeys?
Like before, or
before?
I mean, I still get scared.
Yeah.
But it's like I also recognize it gets a little easier.
Yes.
But then sometimes I'll have experiences that are just really intense. Like I get like shocked and surprised. It's just kind of depends how I go in with. If I go in just kind of in a demanding or like in a way that's not exactly the healthiest, then I can get bitch slapped around for a while, and then that could be traumatic. But the cool thing about that is then later I can just recognize, well, I went through that and that was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced, but I know that I lived through it. So now when I go in, I'm like, I'm totally willing to experience that again, or worse if I need to, but I'm willing to keep coming back because the benefits far outweigh all that stuff. And plus those experiences they happen for a reason.
I find it really interesting, and I appreciate you sharing this, because for me, I've always had this maybe like a certain level of nervousness, hesitation, respect going into anything, even having a float tank with a gram of mushrooms as well. I was like, even going into a float tank, to be perfectly honest, just by itself, and just being like, well, what's going to be coming up? Like, what am I going to be facing today? And for me, I've just had the thought of surrender. I just have to surrender to this experience coming out. If I'm going to fight it, it's probably going to become worse if I don't. And I think that especially has come true. I've done 5-MeO DMT twice now, and now going into both of those ceremonies, experiences, I was just like, surrender, surrender, surrender. And then they were extremely pleasant, extremely beneficial, great experiences for me to be able to have. Those times that you've been bitch slapped around, and I appreciate you stating it that way as well, what do you think's the learning that you can take from that moving forward?
I mean, ultimately, it just makes me stronger. Like, I'm able to withstand sensations that are just borderline unbearable, or just face things that, not even about my own life, but face things about reality itself, about a lot of it tends to come up just around like my deepest pains and griefs and insecurities and just fear. Like, and it's like the type of fear that's like deep down hardwired into like our body. This like fear of getting like eaten alive or being like brutally killed in some way or tortured or whatever. I kind of joke around because I kind of look like Jesus, and you know, there's like this idea that when people do psychedelics, they can take on like a messiah complex.
Yep.
So like sometimes when I'm tripping, they're like, "You're Jesus. You're just kind of continuing form or something." And like I don't necessarily believe it, but it's just kind of a funny idea. But I tend to think like, "Oh, that's why I have so much pain like in my body," because a lot of times I end up every few sessions I go through like excruciating like pain and just separateness, like a kind of this void of rejection and isolation that's just it's painful and unbearable. But I go, oh, those are like my Jesus wounds or something. It's like Jesus is still kind of resentful about what happened to him. But it's something like that where it's like pain that I didn't even like. What actually happened to me in this life to cause this much pain to be stored in my body? I don't even know. It's like it's not personal. I don't know what it's from. But being able to face that and go, okay, what does it mean to be a human? And like what is being asked of us here, and what makes a human being resilient and something that the universe actually respects. Because being a human we're not just worms on a planet. It's like there's that saying that we shouldn't try to be superhuman. We should recognize that being human is super. And like when we go into these states, we recognize like, oh my God, I had no idea how powerful I actually am. And I think that's probably the scariest thing of all, is realizing how powerful we are and like what we're growing into. At least that's what it seems like for me. What I'm growing into is how powerful of a being I am. Like sometimes I realize I'm some sort of all-powerful genie that I can control reality itself. Not to get all megalomaniacal. There's like obviously some limitations to that, but there's also, especially in those states, there's things that we can control because we are the whole universe. We just seem separate now, but like we're the whole thing, and the universe can do anything.
For me, one of the most fascinating parts is, especially living a day-to-day life, getting caught up in what happens in this world and society. There's an element of the mundaneness of just like, I'm working, I'm doing this, and there's all of these kind of like factors. And for me, those experiences and that opening up to what you're talking to is like if someone hasn't had an experience and they hear you say, Mariano, they're like, oh, I am the whole universe. That can be a really wild concept to try and wrap your head around if you haven't had that experience before. But when you say that, I'm like, oh, I can kind of like lean on it and attach to what you're saying because I've had that experience. How do you personally try and integrate that experience back into a day-to-day living?
Well, I think one sort of fundamental pillar of mine, that it might not be true, but it's like currently, like for example, you're in your reality right now, and you seem to be the center of your reality, and then everything you see is reality itself, and anything you don't see doesn't exist. And so everything you're perceiving, it's like, how big is it really? And that's just a concept that currently the universe is having right now. It's like the whole universe is in a certain phase at this particular moment. And so it's like, oh, the universe thinks, oh, it's this big and it's this simple. And we don't see how complex or intricate it really is, because maybe it actually isn't that right now, because the universe is always shape-shifting. And then when we enter into different states, it just kind of reveals itself for what it really is. But then in day-to-day mundane reality, we go, oh, I'm somewhere else now. I'm just in a small part of the universe. But that's just the universe thinking that, in a sense. It's like the mundane is actually the whole fucking thing. It's just and then when you take a substance or you die or something like that, then the whole thing changes into something else. And so it's just a game that the universe plays, because the universe can be anything. It can be infinitely complex, and it can also be just borderline insanely mundane. And I think the point I'm trying to get at is that, like, how do we integrate that? Like, oh, I'm the whole thing, the whole universe. Like, the sense of separation is not, it's just a game that the universe is playing. It's just a game of appearances, when really it's all just kind of one thing. I mean, I think that's like the hard part, but I think what I'm trying to say is that recognize that this moment is like the only moment there is, and it's okay if you fuck it up, and it's okay if you think you're separate still, or whatever. It doesn't actually matter, because it's ultimately just a game the universe is playing with itself. But then the more aware we get, the more we realize, oh, there aren't really stakes here in a way. And so I'm just here to play. The universe is just here to play. It's just like a show. Not to make it nihilistic, because it's also not.
Yes.
But nihilism is also a part of the universe.
Yes.
So you can also rest assured that nothing matters, but then you can play and act as if it does, because it kind of seems like it does.
You know, you're doing an amazing job of communicating this, and this is what I find so fascinating, is having someone as yourself being able to communicate with words, something that I think is extremely difficult, maybe if not even impossible, to actually use words to try and get that message across. And especially when you explained what you just did then, like, I really think of the Hindu philosophy, where it's just like, this is just a big drama that's going on, and each of us are just playing a role that is essentially God just hiding from itself. And that's something I find really interesting, especially when you said that this is just a game, because for me, I've had those realizations, and it's an interesting concept I try and integrate, where I'm like, on one hand, I can maybe lick a possibility of understanding that this is something a part of the all, the one. And on the other hand, I'm like, no, but hang on, I'm a father of 4, I'm a husband, I run these businesses, I do this stuff. Like, they can be quite conflicting. I'm trying to hold that paradox between the two. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, I have a son too,
Yeah.
so it's like, whenever I go into like, wait, why am I even worrying about anything? And then I think of my son, I'm like, oh my God, okay, that's real enough. That's convincing enough. That's like, no, I gotta take care of that shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know, there is this continuity to reality that, at least it seems to be. That's, all right, I have these experiences where it's like, none of this matters, it's all okay, it's just like, and then I'm like, oh, it helps parts of me relax, but then it's like, but this is like real enough to like, take good care of each other and take good care of what we have here. Because when we wake up into the psychedelic state, but then we come back into the dream, and it's like, we don't want to have a bad dream either. It's just like, it seems more pleasant to just have a good dream. But luckily, as we wake up to our delusions, I think a lightness eventually kind of permeates through, and that lightness just makes the dream a little happier.
When it comes to, and I ask this question because I don't think I can answer it well. And if someone was like, Chris, why do you do it? Why do you do psychedelics? Why do you do it as frequently as you do? And I'm going to kind of like lean this then towards how Terence McKenna says, like, once you get the message, put the phone down. Why do you do it?
I mean, I mostly do it because it's just so awesome. it's just so awesome. Like I used to think, oh, I do it because I want to heal, I want to become like who I'm meant to be, and you know, aspects of that are still correct, but a lot of times when I'm going through an experience, especially like awe beyond anything I thought was possible, and it keeps pushing that edge by orders of magnitude. I just go, I'm mostly just doing it now because it's just so amazing. And I think as human beings, we're actually just like DJs of reality itself. And so to me, I'm starting to feel like being a human is more, we're kind of just like a way, the most convenient way to interface with different states and with each other, and just like, oh, this is cool. Like this is really cool, and we could just do so many things and experience all kinds of things. And it's just a fun, convenient way to do it, apparently.
Dude, I love that you said that. Like, I feel like, dude, when people say plant medicine, what comes up for you when someone says that?
I mean, I don't know. I get the term medicine, that people don't have a better word for it, but it tends to imply like it's used when there's something wrong with you, and like it helps to heal you. I think that's just like, that's an aspect of it. But I think being a human being, it's like we have general needs in order to just feel balanced and happy and fulfilled. And I think one of those is being able to unplug for a little while, and also just awe itself. Like awe as not a medicine as much as this remembering that this doesn't have to be a place of just only suffering and only we're not just human. We are other realities. We are the whole universe. There's more going on than just being a human. And it's almost like if I'm just a human, there's something about it that can feel kind of confining, and isn't there more to this? But then like when we merge, I go, oh, okay, yeah. In a sense, there isn't more to this. It's like, because this is great. This is like a vacation compared to like being in infinity all the time.
I get the sense sometimes it's like a pressure release valve, where if I start taking this all way too seriously, it's almost like it brings me back into alignment of like, no, like it's okay. Like it's kind of like what we were speaking to before. There is no, this is serious, but this is also not serious. And again, I think of like, in Buddhist philosophy, where there is like, there is no right and there is no wrong, but right is right and wrong is wrong. And it's being able to hold those in between the two as well. So when it comes to it, like for example, had a great interview a few days ago and was at a friend's place, and he gives me a little paper bag that's sitting just over there, and I walk out and he's given me 8 grams of mushrooms, ketamine, LSD, and MDMA. And I was like, okay, that's fantastic. Great friend. Me currently, so I'm asking purely personally for myself, where I'm like, I don't want to be doing these things for the wrong reasons. And I really appreciate how you're like sharing and communicating this with me, because I don't want to have the wrong perspectives with it. So when it comes to safe psychedelic use, Mariano, like what comes up for you? What's your like, not recommendations, but what would be your advice for me as a friend?
What would be my advice for you? What are you asking?
Like, what are the guidelines in which you see a container of safe psychedelic use being?
I'd say first, like a safe environment where you're physically safe, and you're not going to end up interacting with people you don't want to, like like people you don't know, or police officers or whatever, and an environment where you're not going to, you either have a sitter that's making sure you're safe, or you're contained in a way. Like my chamber, keeps me kind of contained, so I'm not worried about running out into the street naked or anything like that. And then another is, understanding why am I doing it, and like what am I hoping to get out of it? Even if it's just like I feel kind of lost. Like I'm open to just please just show me something that would be helpful right now. It can be something, or just I'm just open to seeing anything right now, whatever it is I may need to see. Just having, I guess, a sort of intention going into it. Another important aspect to me that I say is having daily practices in your life that are centering and grounding, like meditation, physical practice like working out or yoga or running or whatever it is, a physical thing that engages the body in a way that's, balancing and strengthening and whatever, all that stuff. And then also having support, like community, people that you could talk to, because a lot of times I'll have big experiences and then I'll just kind of spin out in my head about it.
Yes.
So that's part of the reason why I started doing my podcast. It wasn't so much like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. It was more about, I just need to be able to talk about these things. And usually I would just send voice notes to a friend or two and just rant for like 20 or 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, and then another friend wants to know how it went. So I just started a podcast so I can talk and integrate and just kind of help concretize a little bit of my experience. And then also just having friends to be able to just talk to and just kick back and forth until I can come back to baseline. Not necessarily right after my trip, but like that later that day or the next day. Just being able to smooth my nervous system out with another person, I think is really important.
I really appreciate you saying that, because when I started on this, I did not have that. And it made the journey more difficult, because I wasn't able to have someone like mirror back what was going on or put words to things that I did not understand. And so for me, and much of the time, and why I enjoy this conversation so much, is you're able to put to words things. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, got it. Like, I understand that. And then it starts to join the dots in my head, experiences that I've had to make better sense of it as well. So I think that's critical. I don't know if I would change my journey. It's not a regret, but I think it's definitely something that I want to have conscious moving forward, is like, do I have the people to be able to have, do you know what I mean, at least a conversation with them? Like, man, I'm not too sure what happened there, like, or just kind of like walking through experiences that have happened as well. So I think that's really cool. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, I want to add one last important thing, at least for me, is having a sense of, I don't want to say purpose, but something in life that I'm doing that feels good to me. Like, because before I would just kind of come back and be like, well, here I am, now what the fuck do I do? And I would kind of get lost in that because I didn't really have anything kind of purposeful or passionate to work on. And then so I'd kind of spin out, or I would just kind of get fixated on relationships or friendships, or just myself, get kind of self-absorbed. But being able to have, for me, it's about coming into alignment with why am I here, not just here for myself and not just here for my family or for my friends and lovers, but there's something that I want to create here. And so having something like that, it's like, even if it's something small, even if it's just, I don't know, I have no idea, just like sharing something with people or making something, like building something. And that to me is where, I mention it because that's where I'm at, like trying to figure that out. And building this chamber, I never thought that I would sell one of these ever. In fact, like if you asked me 4 or 5 months ago, like I had friends be like, dude, you should sell these. And I was like, I actually got mad. I was like, what are you talking about? Why would I sell these? I'm just trying to build this for myself. Like, it didn't occur to me that someone would want one or anything like that. So now it's about me being able to build these things, and then I'm at the just birth of this thing, and I don't know where it's going to go. I'm open to it panning out or not. But then also having channels where I can share my experiences and my knowledge, and be able to have just information. Especially for me, I love salvia, so I want to have a kind of premier website where I can it's almost like courses on how to work with salvia and different aspects of it, and basically just me just ranting about different topics around it.
Can you talk to me more about salvia? I have very little knowledge about.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I mean, quick run through. Salvia is a plant that only grows in Oaxaca, Mexico, and the Mazatec, I think, they've been cultivating it there for a while. But it's a new plant to the scene. It only came up in the past like 60, 70 years or so. And there's not much of a history to it. And the history they have around it is that it's mostly mixed with like Christian, like Maria and Jesus sort of archetypes. And there isn't some previous sort of ancient use. So it's kind of weird. So it's this plant, it's the most potent psychedelic in nature. For example, 5-MeO, it's like a breakthrough dose of 5-MeO is about like 12 to 15 milligrams. Salvia divinorum, it's about 1.5 milligrams.
Wow.
So it's like extremely potent, and you don't need to smoke it. Like you could just chew the leaves, and it's active in your.
Wow.
You absorb it in your mouth. If you swallow it, it gets broken down. But that's how the Mazatec do it. They just chew the leaves, and that's how I did it for a long time. Especially when I was doing it daily, I would just chew leaves a gram or two and just sit and meditate in the chamber. But salvia, it's not. I've done most psychedelics like DMT, 5-MeO DMT, mescaline, large dose like 10-gram mushroom kind of trips, LSD, and a bunch of other stuff. But salvia, it's not like any of those at all. And it's almost like it's not really a psychedelic in that it's like you trip out. It's like I wake up into another, it's like an Easter egg put here on this reality that wakes you up into like out of your dream. It's like one of the analogies I have is it's like you're watching a cartoon show. You're watching like Mickey Mouse on TV, and it'd be like Mickey Mouse in the show, he smokes something, and then all of a sudden he looks through the TV and looks out at you watching the TV, and then he comes out of the TV and he's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? What is going on? And he just wakes up out, he's like, I thought that my reality was real, but I see that I'm just someone's creation, and that there's this illusion that I'm aware, I'm some kind of aware being, but then it's as if that thought form called Mickey Mouse takes form and then steps into this more real reality. And it's like, as complex as our 3D reality is, there's all kinds of realities that we can wake up into. And I think it's, but the thing is, I could be talking about my ass right now, because next time I do salvia, it's like, dude, what the fuck? That wasn't true at all. But it's something like that. It wakes, like sometimes the transition into that could be really weird and psychedelic, but then waking up into just something that's far more real than this reality. And then I just realize, oh, this reality is just, I keep getting stuck in this sort of dream, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But salvia is really powerful. And like, I've done, like 5-MeO is like something that comes close for me. But salvia just totally blows it out of the water for me. But that's just me. And I think the reason why I do it so much, and I feel like I've been called to just work with it so much, to find every aspect, how bad it can be, how great it can be, and just to know the whole spectrum of what this plant can do, which is, it's like the all-powerful universe is what it grants access to. But it's like I have to be willing to experience all the highs and lows.
All the spectrums of it.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I don't mean to sound like pompous or anything, but it's like I feel like I'm being called to be some sort of guardian of the salvia portal. Not like a guardian, like I'm like a bouncer and I let people in and out. But no, it's like more like I'm traversing
like
through
an usherer?
Yeah, maybe something like that. Like I'm traversing like as far as it's letting me go, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, because there's experiences I've had that I wouldn't want anybody to experience, like, unless they really wanted to. So it's like, I always say, like, I don't recommend it to anybody, but if you're interested, like, I'll tell you whatever you want to know.
Can I ask you, Mariano, if Mickey Mouse walks out of the TV and he's like, get the fuck out, this is amazing, and he goes back inside the TV later, and he's inside the TV, and he's like, oh, hang on, I remember I walked out of the TV, I want to do that again. And Mickey Mouse just wants to get out of the TV. What's your advice for him there?
Like, he's just becoming fixated on getting out all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a problem, because, I mean, we're here for a reason. I mean, I've found myself in moments like that where it's like, man, I don't know what to do with myself, and I just want to do that. And I just have to be careful. I don't think there's anything wrong with being curious about it and wanting to, oh, I want to do that again. But yeah, if it's at the expense of other aspects of our life, then yeah, just be mindful of that. Because I think reality is actually super cool. And that's something that it wakes me up to, is like, holy shit. It's part of why I limit myself so much, and like kind of end up, one of my things is I kind of just pretend like I'm scared of everything. Like, I feel scared of people. I feel scared to like be out in the world. I want to just kind of hide. And I think it's because reality is just being a human being on Earth is just so profound and just so awesome, like at its purest form, that it's just overwhelming. And so it's like, I'd rather just like pretend to be small than to recognize like how amazing of a gift like I'm giving myself by just incarnating in a body and being able to just be here. And yeah, that's something that is available to, I think, everybody, to wake up to. It's kind of like the Matrix, where he wakes up out and he's like, why do my eyes hurt? And he's like, because you never used them before. Being able to go into a state of awareness that brings up like where I'm asleep and starts to bring light to, not light in like the woo-woo way, but literally like bring awareness and spotlights to places in my body and my nervous system that were dark or shut off from. Because when I feel embodied, it's exhilarating. Just being sitting in a body is just absolutely exhilarating. It's so exhilarating that we have to like kind of dampen it down somehow.
Dude, I really appreciate the message of you actually enjoying this world, this life, this body, this dimension, whatever you want to call it, because I don't think there are enough people actually saying that. I think that's really cool. I think you're doing a really great job of being Mickey Mouse inside the TV and outside the TV. And I really like that analogy. It kind of really concretes it in for me as well. What fascinates you moving forward from here? Like, what are you looking forward to when it comes to this work, the chambers, psychedelic use on more of a collective? What fascinates you with this?
Man, well, I think my biggest vision for the world is a world where we normalize psychedelic use as a society. Not saying everybody has to do it, but what I mean is it becomes as normal as whatever. Like,
it's not taboo.
Yeah, it's not taboo, or especially illegal. Like, your life's not gonna get ruined because you're just doing something that's completely in your birthright to experience. So I think, like, I want to live in that world. And to me, when I built these chambers, I was just trying to keep myself kind of safe and be able to explore this. But then it started becoming like, no, this is literally the first, in a way, the first time travel machines. There's like this idea that when time travel was first invented, that's when everybody from all of times will just start showing up, because that's when the first machine was created, that whole concept.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. I think it doesn't work in the way that science fiction has like got us to think, like time travel works. Like, you get into a machine and then your body itself moves to other places in time or something like that. I think especially with salvia, there's this concept that it's like reality is not really what we think it is, and there's actually the reason why we're here is because we're coming up to something that the universe is like, we're gonna be like, oh, you punked us. Like there's something so profound that we're gonna wake up to that like it's just gonna blow us out of the water. And that to me, like the chambers are a portal into these different realities. So basically you're teleporting to your body right now, right?
Yeah.
And the analogy I use is if you were to go out for a walk and you see an ant on the ground and you'd be like, oh, I wonder what's the ant doing? Then you stoop down low and just get really close and just watch what he's doing. And if you can hear the ant's thoughts, you would get a sense of, oh, this ant would be thinking, oh, I'm like 10 days old and this is what I was doing earlier and I'm just going to grab a bite and I'm going to go meet up with some people down in the tunnel later, whatever. And you get this sense that he has a past and a future and he's like his own sort of, he's in his own reality. But what you're just stooped down paying attention to him. So in a sense, you've just teleported to this ant's experience and you get this sort of feeling like you get immersed in his story and then you start to think like, oh, I'm the ant and I have a past. But really, you just came down to that one particular moment in time. And that's why that ant's 10 days old right now and not just being born or whatever. But I think awareness is doing the same thing with us. We're teleporting to a body at a particular point in time. And then the body's saying, oh yeah, I'm this old, I was born this time. And you're getting a sense of what that body's past was like. But there's just one moment.
Yes.
And that body is just kind of telling its story and you're listening. And so awareness can actually leave this body at any point and just as if it never happened. And I think the thing that can teleport to other bodies or the thing that can change reality to do all kinds of anything because reality is absolutely limitless. I think we're building something that will allow awareness to more easily transition it already works pretty well, but I think it wants to take it up to another level, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I see myself building these portals and then I look on the internet, I'm like, how come nobody else has built one of these?
Yeah.
This is really weird.
Dude, I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I want one in my house in Bali. I want one in my house in Australia. Like, what? I was like, why haven't I seen this before? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know either.
Yeah.
Like, but I guess it's because it's only 2022
Yeah.
and nobody's invented one
Yeah.
yet. But to me, I was just building it for my own use. And, if people want them, let's make it happen.
Totally.
I mean, I'm just a guy I'm just living at my house. I just rent. I have a garage that I turned into a wood shop. And I just built one for myself. And it's like, it would be awesome to keep seeing where this goes.
That's great.
I definitely feel like I need help in that too. I'm just a guy that I don't know how to do this shit.
Well, where does someone go to be able to get these?
I mean, I'll deliver it anywhere in the United States, but I mean, I'm in Austin, Texas right now. So I have I have a website. I mean, it will probably be in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put a link in.
innerportaldesigns.com. But yeah, I mean, to me, I need to stay true. I tend to get worried about money or get worried how am I going to make this work and things like that. But I think ultimately, if I can just trust that, trust the bigger vision, which is I think planetarily, we want to be able to access these states, not just in community sort of ceremony settings, like in the jungle or just even around here out in the country, they have ceremonies, but being able to, I think, do it in a new way, where it's a more personal thing. And maybe that's me because I'm kind of a loner, but...
No, I think that's why I'm actually intrigued into it as well, because I was like, I enjoy doing it by myself, no one around, and being able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I really appreciated this and was fascinated to it.
Well, because I think we have to do it safely too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we have to move forward like with discernment and respect, because we don't want to end up getting hurt or giving these substances a bad name. So yeah, being able to do it safely, because I like to do it alone. I generally don't like other people around,
Yeah.
because then it becomes too much about them, and I'm just trying to have a really deep personal experience. It's funny because it's like it becomes totally deep personal
Yes.
when I merge, but this is a tool that I think will change things. And it's like not just the ones I'm building, but
Yeah.
people will come up with their own.
Yeah.
And I've even had ideas like, you have a soundproof chamber, right? But then there can also be, the interior is lined with materials that are they feel really good to the touch. They're also like very
So it's
natural
sensual as well.
Yeah, so like when you come back, you can just like kind of touch something that's not just like you're banging into your kitchen, your like coffee table or anything like that. It's like, oh, and you're just in this kind of cocoon. At least that's kind of nice for me.
Yeah.
But then also, who knows, things like Jamie Wheel, he talked about being able to adjust your oxygen nitrogen ratios, and being able to, you have a chamber that's not just a controlled soundproof dark environment, or there can be light inside too, but there can be you can adjust the gas ratios.
Yes.
So that you can maybe increase the nitrogen or the oxygen or whatever. I don't know exactly how that stuff works, but then so you can maybe take yourself into a different kind of state, and then in combination with other psychedelics, or just taking yourself into that gas ratio state with just meditation, so that it just becomes a tool that is very versatile. And then there can also be like sound system in there. These guys in Austin, they invented this thing called a sound bed. I don't know if you heard of that.
No.
But it's just like a bed that you lay on, and then there's all these speakers in it.
Oh, wow.
And I hope I'm not butchering this concept, but it's like there's different speakers, they vibrate.
Okay.
And so you get like a full body sort of immersive sound bath of some kind, which can be like extremely psychedelic. I never use one, but something like that, you could put that inside the chamber.
There's so many avenues to be able to go, and I appreciate you kind of pioneering this, and I really do respect the work that you're doing here, and that's why I was so fascinated in this conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to be able to do this today, Mariano. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing where you take this. You've communicated so well things that I find difficult to communicate myself and for others to be able to get across. So thank you. I think that's amazing. I'll definitely put in the show notes the links to be able to get the chambers. Tell me when you can do international, because I'd love two of them. And what's the name of the podcast as well, so people can go and listen to?
It's Inner Portal Podcast. If you go like on Spotify or any of those, and it's right now it's just kind of me. I just rant about shit.
Amazing.
So, but yeah, I think eventually it'll be a little bit more. There's a few conversations that like I'll be uploading on there, like just with friends and stuff like that, and maybe it'll evolve into something else.
Awesome.
But yeah, there's that too.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for today, Mariano. It's been spectacular. You've opened my eyes into so much, and I feel like I'm definitely walking out of this a little bit wiser, a little bit smarter, and looking forward to what the experiences I can have myself as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's super fun.
Thanks,
I feel
dude.
more clear right now too.
Good. Thank you, my man.